What's going on, y'all? Peter Griffin here. With Wuthering 3.5 on the horizon, there are a lot of characters running in this patch. And almost every character in this patch has value as well. And since there are going to be a lot of characters running within this patch, there's probably some people wondering as to who to pull for. And so what I will be doing is discussing the value of every character that is running within this patch so you guys can make the right choices so you guys don't end up breaking your account. So let's get into it. So the first character that we're going to be starting off with is Yang Yang, who I'll be referring to as 5-star Yang Yang. She's going to be a Havoc DPS, and all that we know is that she's going to be utilizing Havoc Bane, and through the new Echo set that was shown within the game, she'll also be a heavy attack character as well. But she's mostly going to be utilizing Havoc Bane. And since Havoc Bane doesn't actually deal damage on its own compared to the other negative status effects, and since Havoc Bane lowers the defense of your enemies, that's where the heavy attack damage is going to come from as well. So what Yang Yang is going to do is that she's going to apply Havoc Bane, and then through her heavy attack damage, she's going to be able to do more damage. So she's not going to be as reliant on negative status effects compared to the other characters like Ameth or Hiyuki. And I can honestly see Yang Yang being a more free-to-play and honestly more flexible character compared to the other two. And what this also means is that she's also not going to be as reliant as Chisa compared to Ameth and Hiyuki as well. She'll still obviously want to be ran with Chisa, but if you don't have Chisa, it's not going to be that much of a difference. So overall, in terms of teammates, Yang Yang doesn't seem to be as restrictive. She seems to be a lot more flexible. The only character that looks like that's going to be a must-have on Yang Yang's team is most likely going to be Sui Sui, but I'm going to get into that later. But the other options she still has are very good as well. Like Yuno, for example, is looking to be her best partner. And Mortifi, if you don't have Yuno, Mortifi is also going to be a very good option as well if you don't have Yuno. So both Mortifi and Yuno seem to be very good for her. And as for her weapon situation is not bad at all. She has access to Emerald of Genesis, which is still a very good option for just about every sword you use in the game. So as long as you have access to Emerald of Genesis, you should be fine for a 5-star Yang Yang. But her weapon does seem to be a very good option as well, considering it will also give heavy attack damage, and there's not really many heavy attack damage swords in the game that she can utilize. So her weapon situation is completely fine, it's not as bad. As long as you have her best teammates, you're not going to need her weapon. So overall, 5-star Yang Yang seems to be a very solid pull. I don't think she's going to be a must pull or anything crazy. I think that if you don't have a Havoc DPS, if you have Frolova, I think you're fine, but if you're someone like me who doesn't have Frolova and only uses Camellia, since Camellia is best girl, but let's not get into that, then I would recommend pulling 5-star Yang Yang. But if you already have Hiyuki or Ameth, then I don't necessarily think you need to pull 5-star Yang Yang. Or if you're a new player, picking up 5-star Yang Yang isn't a bad idea, but because of the other characters running this patch, I'm going to have to say that it's not really recommended to pull for 5-star Yang Yang if you're a new player. Next up we got Sui Sui, and Sui Sui we really don't have much to go off of. What we know is that she's going to be utilizing Glacial Chafe and that she's going to end up being a support. And since she shares the same Sonata spec as 5-star Yang Yang, we know that once she inflicts Glacial Chafe, she'll be giving an attack buff to Resonators in the team. So her teammate situation isn't looking all that too bad. She'll obviously have a team on Yuki's team because she applies Glacial Chafe, and since Yuki's team revolves around Glacial Chafe, she'll easily have a spot on that team. And it's honestly looking like she could also work with other native status effect characters as well, like 5-star Yang Yang and Ameth due to the attack buffs that she's able to grant once she applies Glacial Chafe. Well, unless you're Cardothea, which you're just not going to work with her at all. Or another possibility as to what could happen is that she could only be a support for 5-star Yang Yang and Hiyuki, so if that does happen, she's going to be a bit of a more niche pull, but we don't know the full details of her kit, so as of right now, she's still a bit of a watchlist character. And what I mean by a watchlist character is that since we don't know the full details of her kit, I would recommend waiting until we get her full kit details, and once we do have those, I would make your decision then. And then for her weapon situation is essentially non-existent because her main weapon you don't need to pull since she's going to be a support, and just like every single support in this game, you really only need one weapon, and that's Variation. So as long as you have a copy of Variation, you'll be completely fine and you can just completely skip out on her weapon. So Sui Sui overall, I would just recommend waiting until we have more kit information on her, and then once we know the full details of her kit, you can make your decision then. Now, for the rerunning characters, the first character that we have is Lene, and whether you're a veteran player or a new player, Lene is a must pull. Now, why do I say Lene is a must pull? It's because she works on almost every single team in the game because of what buffs she provides. Lene is essentially the shorekeeper of sub DPSs in this game. Through her outro alone, she's giving a 15% damage bonus and a 25% Resonance Liberation bonus. And then through her ult, she's giving a 24% party-wide damage bonus. So just from those two buffs alone, she's already giving a 39% overall damage increase and a 25% Resonance Liberation increase to the next Resonator. So just based off those two buffs alone, she's already worth pulling. And then once you factor in her echoes and weapons as well, she's going to be providing a lot more buffs as well. And speaking of her weapons, she's arguably the most free-to-play friendly 5-star in the entire game, which if you have Static Mist, you already have her second best weapon, so you really don't need to pull Lene Sig unless you really want it, but if you have Static Mist, that's all you need on Lene. And as for her teammates, when I said earlier that she is the shorekeeper for sub DPSs, I meant that she is the shorekeeper for sub DPSs because of how flexible she is, and she can straight up fit onto almost every team in the game. Like if you want to run a Tomb Break team with Ament or Luke, boom, Lene is the best option right there. Or if you want to run a Resonance Liberation damage to a team with Hiyuki or Ament, boom, Lene again, right there. Or if you just want a general sub DPS buffer for almost every other DPS in the game, you have Lene with her 39% total damage bonus, so you can just slot Lene in there. So overall, there's really nothing bad about Lene, and there's really no reason as to why you shouldn't go for her. With the amount of buffs she's providing, how free-to-play friendly she is, and how flexible she is with her teammates, there really is zero reason as to why you shouldn't pull for her. And also, she's getting a skin this patch, and with how hot the skin is as well, there's another reason as to why you should pull for her. And she's just the highest value character within this patch, so again, if you don't have Lene, pick her up. I heavily recommend you do so. Next up, we got Ament, and Ament is a pretty high value pick if you ask me, but that is only if you have Lene. And I say that because Lene is Ament's best partner, aside from Mornier. So if you already own Lene, or if you decide to pick up Lene this patch, picking up Ament as well is not a bad idea, and it's honestly a recommended idea if you ask me. So once you pick up Lene, and then you get Ament, you already have two of the best characters on her team, and then for her third slot, you can just slot in Shorekeeper. Granted, it won't do as much damage compared to Mornier, but you'll still be doing a massive amount of damage with Lene and Shorekeeper. So just from Lene and Shorekeeper, you already have access to her Tomb Break team, which is arguably still the strongest team in the game. But as for her Fusion Burst team, unless you already have both Denya and Chisa, you're not going to be able to make that work. So if you do decide to pull for Lene this patch, no, you'll only be able to use her Tomb Break team, which isn't even a bad thing because you could honestly argue that her Tomb Break team is better than her Fusion Burst team. So her teammate situation is honestly covered in as long as you have Lene and Shorekeeper or Verena, as long as you have any of those three characters, you're completely fine on Lene's teammates. And as for her weapons are not bad at all. She's honestly very free to play when it comes to her weapons. You have access to Emerald of Genesis, which is her best free-to-play weapon, and if you really want, you can pull for her weapon. Her weapon's not a requirement to pull, but there is a noticeable damage increase if you do have her weapon versus using Emerald of Genesis. So overall, you don't really need to pull her weapon, but if you do want to make your aim much stronger, it is honestly not even a bad idea to pull her weapon, but if you're fine with using Emerald of Genesis on your Ament, it's completely fine. And to be honest, pulling Ament is a very big benefit for your account considering that she is the best DPS in the game aside from Hiyuki. The only downside I can really say to pulling Ament is that you won't be able to utilize her Fusion Burst if you don't have Chisa and Denya, so if you don't have neither of those two characters, don't even think about using her Fusion Burst because you're just going to be wasting time, it's useless. So Ament, I would definitely recommend pulling, especially if you have Lene. She's just going to upscale your account greatly, but if you don't have Lene, I wouldn't necessarily recommend pulling her. And the last character that we have is Luke, and to be honest, Luke really depends on if you're a new player or if you are a veteran player. Because if you're a new player, picking up Luke is a very good option considering he is one of the most free-to-play friendly and accessible characters in the entire game. But if you are a veteran player and you already have characters like Ament, Hiyuki, Sigrica, I wouldn't necessarily recommend pulling Luke because he is still a good option, don't get me wrong, but there are still better options than him. But anyway, moving on to his teammates, he has a large variety of teammates that he can use. Like, again, Lene is running this patch, so if you pull Lene, you'll have access to Luke's best in slot. Or even if you don't have Lene, you can use Sanhua, who is still a very good option. And then as for the third slot, you can slot in Mornier, Shorekeeper, or Verena, all work just as fine. So his teammate situation is very good considering how much teammates he has access to and how free-to-play friendly those teammates are. And as for his weapon, you do not need to pull a signature at all. As long as you have a copy of Pulsation Bracer, you can use that weapon and it works completely fine on Luke. And if you want, you can pull his signature weapon. It's not required for him to work, but using Pulsation Bracer, again, is just fine. But if you really want it sick, you can pull for it, but it's not recommended. So overall, I do think Luke is a very strong pickup if you are a new player or if you are a veteran player looking for another DPS on your team. But if you already have stronger options than Luke, then I don't think Luke is necessarily worth pulling. Like, he's not a bad pick. Again, he's still a very good pick, but there are better DPSs than him. And if you have those DPSs that are better than him, you don't need to pull him. And then lastly, we have the rerun banner featuring the 1.x characters, which are Jinxie, Yinlin, Jian, Zheja, Zhang Liao, and Chang Li. And their weapons will also be rerunning as well. And if you want my completely honest opinion, I don't think you should summon for any of these characters because they've all been power crept and they don't really offer much value. And the same can be said honestly about their weapons as well because their weapons are just okay. They offer as good stat sticks for characters, but their weapons aren't really worth pulling for, aside from Yinlin's String Master because that's still one of the best weapons in the game. But overall, whether you're a new player or a veteran player, I simply just cannot recommend this banner. The only thing I recommend you summoning for is String Master, and that's just about it. So overall, this banner lineup is extremely good. If you want my honest opinion, if you're a new player, I would recommend pulling Linne and Ameth. And if you want, you could pull Ameth's weapon, but if you have a copy of Emerald Genesis, then you'll be completely fine. And also pick up Luke if you're a new player as well. And if you pull all three of those characters as a new player, they will greatly boost your account. And as for 5-star Yang Yang and Sui Sui, Yang Yang I do think is going to be a solid pull, but Sui Sui I think is just a character that everyone should just watch out for her kit details because we still don't know if she's a niche pull or if she's going to be like an actual flexible pull, so I would say watch out for her. But overall, let me know who you guys are pulling for in the comments below and if this guide helped you out. And with that, thank you for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell for when I do upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one.